Seattle Mayoral. Good afternoon. Hello and welcome to Inspire Washington's Mayoral Candidate Forum for the City of Seattle. My name is Manny Kowalian, and I am the Executive Director for Inspire Washington. For those of you that benefit from a visual description, I am a middle-aged Filipino-American male. I have short dark hair. I'm wearing dark-colored plastic glasses. I am wearing a checkered blue and white shirt with a blue suit jacket. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this event. I would like to thank Arts Fund, our community partner, for making this happen. We also receive support from Doors Open, a program of For Culture. They support all of our free programming. Thank you to all of them for supporting our science, heritage, and arts focused programming. Inspire Washington acknowledges that we and our partners statewide are on the homelands of Native peoples who have lived in this region since time immemorial. We pay respect to their elders, both past and present. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where all of our state cultural partners live and where they work. Currently, there are 42 tribes, 35 of which are federally recognized, that share traditional homelands and waterways in what is now Washington state. Some of these are nations and confederacies that represent multiple tribes and bands, and Inspire Washington recognizes every single one of them. We express our deepest respect for and gratitude towards these original and current caretakers and culture bearers of our region. As a cultural sector, we acknowledge our responsibility to establish and maintain relationships with these tribes and Native peoples in support of tribal sovereignty and the inclusion of their voices in teaching art, heritage, natural science, and providing cultural programming. We pledge that our relationships will consist of mutual trust, respect, and reciprocity. Inspire Washington acknowledges that here in Seattle, we are on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and the Muckleshoot. We honor them, their people, past and present, and share gratitude for the land itself. Now, I'd like to share a little bit about Inspire Washington and why we're here today. Inspire Washington is your cultural advocacy organization. We exist to serve every state community, from Spokane to Sequim, from Kennewick to Kitsap, from Wenatchee to Whatcom, and right here in Seattle. We serve communities by supporting all of our science, heritage, and arts cultural partners. They are the ones that inspire Washington communities every day with their uplifting programming. We build an advocacy coalition that combines and focuses the energy of thousands of people and organizations, businesses that provide science, heritage, and arts activities and experiences to every one of Washington's cities and towns. We do a lot of things like advocate at the federal level, but right down to the city level too, because we know that within local government, so many policies are passed and resources are invested in the programs that our communities care about most. So we are thrilled for this time today to talk with our mayoral candidates about Seattle's cultural and creative future. Our science, heritage, and arts programs are important to our city, the region, the state, and beyond. Seattle is a cultural capital of the world. Many of our communities all across the nation and across the globe look to what happens here as we pioneer great programs that lift up creativity, arts, and culture, as well as pioneer areas of accessibility. Why does this matter right now? Well, cultural programs are foundational to a vibrant, thriving, and equitable community. We provide programming and services that fill the gaps that local, state, and federal government can't fill. These programs make positive impacts on the education of young people. They drive well-being and health, and all as well as tremendous economic growth, just to name a few areas. We are not nice to have, we are necessary. We have a large and talented workforce. We promote civic pride and spur community cohesion. And most important, our work supports freedom of expression. It stimulates community conversation, and all of our cultural work introduces new ideas. We have always been at the forefront of innovation. Why does this election matter today? Well, these are challenging times. Our cultural partners, the whole cultural ecosystem is still fragile post pandemic. There are so many external forces that put pressure on cultural and creative work, such as the retraction of state and federal funding, the threats from the federal level on our critical DEIA programs, the introduction of new state taxes that are uh, further fueling the expenses for our creative and cultural partners, and the challenges our workforce face to live in a city that is often unaffordable for many, especially for those in the cultural sector with depressed wages. We want to have conversations with our electives to talk about how they can stand up for us against federal pressure, how they can support us when we are threatened for against public funding and the enforcement of presidential priorities. We want their help to mitigate the impact of sound transit expansion. We want them to support doors open and also understand that city investment is critical because there is nowhere else in Washington state where it is more expensive to provide creative and cultural programs than right here in the city of Seattle. City investment is still critical. We also want to maintain those investments and grow it. Now, that's a lot to think about. That's a lot to talk about. We're really excited to have these great candidates here today to share their views on all of this. And now I'm thrilled to turn your Zoom focus to my coworker, a wonderful advocate and cultural champion, Jesse.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessie Wasson. I'm the Deputy Director for Inspire Washington. I use she, her pronouns, and for a visual description, I'm a white woman in my 40s with brown hair and wearing a blue shirt and brown blazer with black glasses. Inspire Washington is a nonprofit organization, and we do not endorse candidates. But we feel strongly that voters deserve to know where candidates stand on cultural issues. These forums have been created with that in mind. The questions that will be asked of the candidates today were created by a team of cultural leaders and advocates who live and work across the city. So here's how our forum will work. The district team captain will ask the questions, and each candidate will be given 3 minutes to answer, and we will rotate through who goes first. I will time each candidate's answer and will hold up a colored flag which corresponds to how much time remaining the candidate has. The green flag means keep talking, you got lots of time. The yellow flag means you have 1 minute left. And the red flag means you have 15 seconds to wrap it up. And when it's really time to stop, I'll go like this or just verbally cut you off. At the end of your 3 minutes so that we can stay on time and so that everyone has equal opportunity to be heard. If your questions are not answered, there will be an opportunity for more questions in the Q&A chat function in this webinar, so you can start thinking about those. We have also put out a Google form so that folks in the public can also submit questions and have been doing for the last 2 weeks or so. So I do have some of those already. But if your questions still haven't been answered, please go ahead and email us at Inspire Washington. And now I would like to welcome our candidates to the Zoom screen. Let's give a big virtual round of applause for the candidates for Mayor Bruce Harrell and Katie Wilson. Welcome. Great. And at this time, I would like to invite each of the candidates to take 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, however you would like. And I'll be timing you with our flags. Why don't we start with Bruce first, and then we'll go to Katie.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I look forward to the next hour, how much time we have. So my name is Bruce Harrell. I'm wearing a purple sort of a dress shirt in commemoration of Domestic Violence Month, and I'm biracial. I'm half black and half Japanese, and so if you can imagine what that combination produced, and I'm 67. That just sounds old, but that's what I look like. I went to Seattle Public Schools, Garfield High School. I played in the band under famed musician Clarence Acox. I played as a trumpet player until he respectfully kicked me out, and then I joined the football team because I was that bad of a trumpet player. My father was a musician. He played in the saxophone in the band with Quincy Jones. They went to high school together, and I think music and arts and cultures played a pivotal role in my upbringing. I went to the University of Washington and And as mayor for the last 3.5, 4 years, I've tried to use arts not just as a method by which we survive or we talk to one another, but truly as a definition of what Seattle is. We are known for our Seattle arts and culture scene. Should not take that for granted. And so I've tried to make sure that the Doors Open program, for example, that I'm a big supporter of, stays in place. We've used the admissions tax, I think, to the benefit of our artists who mean everything to the city. And I look forward to 4 more years of supporting the arts and culture uh, industry, if you will. I think we have incredible opportunities right now. If you look at all of our plans, whether it's the downtown activation plan or many of our neighborhood plans, we integrate art into it. And I think we've hired a national leader in this space in Golgun Kayem, and look forward to her continuation as a leader in this space. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Katie Wilson. It's wonderful to be here with you this afternoon. So I'm running for mayor in part because we are in an affordability crisis. It's very, very expensive to live in this city. So we need bread, but we need roses too. And that means that we need the arts. I believe that the arts are so central to what makes a city great. I grew up in a small kind of economically declining city on the East Coast where it almost always felt like nothing was going on. And I remember how exciting it was when our downtown business district first hosted an art walk and everyone came out for it. And it felt like the city came alive and there was community and it kind of felt like we were a real city. I also remember how exciting it was to go on class trips to the Forum, or when the high school drama class put on a play, or when we went to New York City to visit the Guggenheim. So I really believe that introducing our students and our youth to the arts is so important. Artists reflect our times, both everything that's good and also everything that's wrong and needs to be made better. I believe that the arts connect us to each other and help us to discover ourselves and bond over our shared humanity. And the arts are a major driver of economy, and also the arts are struggling. And I know that artists and people who work in the arts and culture sector are struggling with the affordability crisis in this city. If I'm elected mayor, I promise to work in collaboration to find solutions specific to this sector, because I know that we cannot have a vibrant and a world-class city in Seattle without artists and arts and culture workers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And now I would like to introduce a member of our candidate forum team, Halea DeBarros. She's our captain for the city of Seattle. Halea grew up in Seattle and has also lived and worked as an actor, teaching artist, and arts education activist in Los Angeles and New York. She's passionate about providing arts education access to all and paying artists living wages. Most recently, she served as the education director for Third Stone, the nonprofit arm of Seattle's iconic Bumbershoot Arts and Music Festival, working to develop the next generation of arts and cultural leaders through their workforce development program. An adjunct professor in the youth development program at Highline College, Halea was previously the director of arts education at Arts Corps, where she oversaw arts programming for 3,000 students each year with 25 partners across King County. Halea has worked extensively to expand, enhance, and support the field of professional teaching artistry on both a regional and national scale, serving previously as co-executive director of the Teaching Artists Guild, where she oversaw the successful merger of TAG and New York-based Association of Teaching Artists. She teaches in the communications and youth development programs at Highline College and consults with Creative Generation. Welcome, Halea.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor Harrell and Ms. Wilson, for being here today. I'm a theater artist, and in the theater world, we like to warm up a little before we jump into things. So we're going to start with a warm-up question, which was, what was the last arts and culture event that you attended that wasn't for a campaign event that you personally purchased a ticket to? And have you missed anything lately because you've been campaigning that you wished you had gotten a chance to go see? And I believe, Mayor Harrell, you're going first for this question.
Yeah, the last one, I believe, was The Wiz, put on by primarily high school students at Benaroya Hall. It was an outstanding production, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I believe that was the last one.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
I last went to see Twelfth Night at Seattle Shakespeare Company, and it was very wonderful. And I am a big Shakespeare nerd and fan, and I love going to Shakespeare plays.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. We're going to transition now into thinking about our vision for arts. Mayor Harrell, your budget proposal most recently has proposed designating $200,000 towards the development of a citywide cultural plan. So, Ms. Wilson, you've talked about public ownership and social infrastructure, such as affordable housing and public transit. How would you utilize a cultural plan within that vision? And for Mayor Harrell, you focused on economic recovery and the quote, One Seattle. How would you utilize a cultural plan within that vision? Ms. Wilson, you're first.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, I think this is a great question. And, as I mentioned, the affordability crisis is very central to why I'm running for mayor and my vision for the city, especially tackling the housing affordability crisis. And, I think that the extent to which the city has become unaffordable for people working as artists and in the arts and culture sector has been just so damaging, right? I've talked to so many people who are unstably housed and who are just really struggling to put together the pieces as artists and who are having to work other jobs to make ends meet. And of course, the idea of starting a family in that circumstance is very, very challenging. So I really think that one of the highest impact things we can do as a city is to work to create more affordable housing that is specifically intended for artists and arts and culture workers. And I've been very inspired by some of the projects going on around the city in that respect, like Equinox Studios and the plans for the Bend and the El Rey downtown in Belltown, which I think is a really exciting opportunity. And so I really think that if we're thinking about building out a cultural plan for the city, we should be thinking about that infrastructure, both about affordable housing for artists and about space, right? Space that is owned and controlled by the arts and culture community, by small nonprofits in ways that are going to make it stable and affordable for the long haul. And so thinking about how we can try to infuse every neighborhood of the city with this, land and buildings, basically, that can be devoted to this purpose. And I think there's probably some really interesting opportunities for collaboration with Seattle's new social housing developer, right, which is going to be developing this in publicly owned, permanently affordable, mixed income housing. And as that project gets rolling, I think looking for areas of collaboration will be really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, also been really impressed by the work of Seed and so I think that is something I would love to work on and figure out how like every single neighborhood can have kind of an anchor, right? An anchor of affordable housing and whether that's, studio space or performance space for artists.
All right, should I just dive in?
Yeah, go for it.
I was waiting for the flag.
Sorry.
Okay, so when I first got elected, I really thought about what is the plan for the arts community. We wanted to be very intentional. And in all due respect to the department and to the former director, I wanted to do a national search to find the best of the best. And I wanted arts to be at the center of rebuilding the city. You may recall we were coming out of George Floyd's murder on May 24th. We were coming out of COVID. We were still social distancing. And for me, arts has been that connector, that connective tissue, if you will, between neighborhoods, businesses, and artists, and sort of bringing the inspiration that we wanted to see. So I did a national search and I got Golgoon. And then when we started developing our strategic plan and our arts plan, we started thinking about programmatically, what did we want? We wanted to see arts in parks. We wanted to see youth arts. We wanted to see artists at the Seattle Center. We wanted to see the centering art and racial equity, realizing that arts once again could be a equitable driver to foster good, healthy conversations. I jokingly said that when I went to high school, I took music as I was in the band and I was a trumpet player. So we looked at our investments in Seattle Public Schools through the Expand Creative Advantage program. So what we've tried to do all throughout the city is sort of lift up our arts and culture community. And I think many of you have seen me at whether it's been Benaroya Hall or the Fifth Avenue or the Paramount. I try to go almost several times a month to let people know I value the arts, and I've given several speeches. So for me, our downtown activation plan as we rejuvenate businesses and get people the foot traffic there, and we rely on that admissions tax. I must tell you that we keep our eye very closely on that. It feeds right into your industry, that we're trying to stimulate and activate people such that they support the arts. The best thing people could do is support the arts. And so that's why when the Fifth Avenue Theater, as an example, started to have some real financial challenges, I was the fundraiser, and I was the strategic planner with people like Ken L. Haddoff to make sure that we cut deals to make sure we preserve that gem in Fifth Avenue. So that's how we use it. We use it as a strategic advantage to set Seattle apart from all of the other cities. And if you look at our foot traffic, again, we're almost at 2019 levels, and that's how we get the admin tax, and that's how we pump it back into the industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Harrell, for bringing up to the Fifth Avenue. Seattle has invested, a lot in some of our major marquee places, and particularly recently in the waterfront as well as in Seattle Center. How will both of you ensure that your administration also invests in neighborhoods, in small venues, in community hubs? And how do you decide which arts and culture is worth encouraging and preserving? I believe we're on Mr. Harrell first.
Yeah, that last part of that question is really an interesting one, and I do welcome it. How do I decide sort of what kind of art or what kind of industry or what kind of vibe, if you will, is important in different neighborhoods? Well, I have to sort of be led. I have to let the artists and the audiences sort of tell me what they like and sort of what they think is either marketable or can be monetized and can stimulate and create wonderful activity. So not being a musician, or at least a failed musician, I let the artist sort of tell me what, where it should be. And many of the programs that I mentioned, for example, are designed exactly for that, not just in our downtown core. I use the downtown activation plan as an example. If you see what we're doing at Westlake Mall, the Westlake Park area is truly going to be a gem for everyone. And one reason why we talk about experiential activities, song, dance, poetry, and even restaurateurs, by the way, is that's how we will sort of combat all of our new buying habits. Everyone's buying it through e-commerce now. So the neighborhoods, whether it's Columbia City or West Seattle or different areas of the town, they will be vibrant by our reliance and emphasis on arts. I've continued to fund the Arts Care Grant Program, which really, quite candidly, puts real money in the hands of small and mid-sized organizations. And again, our Seattle Restored program too focuses on new artists. And so we know artists don't make a lot of money often. We realize, again, the barriers to entry have been lowered in terms of YouTube sensations, but the barriers of housing are still high in a very expensive city. So what we're doing from our Office of Economic Development and through our arts and culture programs are trying to put money directly into the hands of artists and create that vibrancy all throughout the city, not just in downtown areas.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and it echoes some of the concerns that I've heard as I've been talking with folks in the arts and culture sector around the city. And I think there is a feeling that there tends to be a bias toward funding kind of large anchor institutions, which of course are very important and we want to support them. But we have so many amazing smaller kind of grassroots efforts that really a little goes a long way in terms of supporting them. And I mean, I guess what I'll say is that, I'm a community organizer and very much an appreciator of grassroots initiative. And so I think I personally will lean toward a model where we're focusing on supporting community-driven projects, both because they need that encouragement and support, but also because that's how we can leverage the passion and creativity and energy that is brought by individual community members and people who've come together to start a project because they are passionate about it, because they want to see it through, and they see how it addresses a need in the community and contributes contributes to their community. So I definitely think that the city should be leaning toward supporting grassroots efforts in arts and culture. And I'll say that one thing that I've been kind of thinking about is how can the city most effectively direct its funding for the arts, which is, a relatively small pot of money compared to the newish county fund. One idea that's been put to me that I think is worth exploring is thinking through whether we could shift toward an emphasis on supporting individual artists and arts and culture workers through that fund through some kind of housing voucher or something where we're focusing a little bit more on the individuals who need to be able to afford to live in this city as opposed to organizations. And I think, not saying we definitely should move in that direction, but I do think that that's something that's worth a deep conversation. And I guess I'll say on the note of supporting kind of bottom-up efforts, this is one of the reasons why I was really thrilled to support the folks in Belltown, the large coalition that came together around trying to get city support to turn the El Rey into nonprofit and art space and affordable housing for artists. That's the kind of effort where kind of everyone comes together around a common goal and push and we win. That's, I think, is just so inspiring, and that the city should be doing everything it can to support.
Thank you. Let's dive into this a little deeper, thinking about the huge events that Seattle has most recently hosted and will be hosting soon, both with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game last year, fingers crossed, maybe the World Series this year, and FIFA World Cup in 2026. Ms. Wilson, how would you work with grassroots organizations and smaller neighborhoods to ensure that these large marquee events really do lift up neighborhoods, lift up smaller organizations? And Mayor Harrell, for you, what lessons have you learned having gone through the planning process for these events already?
Yeah, so on this, I'll say, the scale of the crowds that are going to be coming here for the FIFA World Cup next year are so vast that we know that that will be pushing people out into neighborhoods around the city when it comes to where people are staying. But we also know that there's going to be a tendency for activity and the spending of money and the spending of time to concentrate in the downtown and south of downtown kind of core. And so I think the challenge for the city and for others who are thinking through how we can kind of spread the wealth and the attention and the benefits is really how do we get people out into the neighborhoods around the city? How do we create in each neighborhood business district kind of a hub of activities and small businesses and arts events that people are going to gravitate to and want to spend time there and spend money there? And so that's something that I think I would want to be kind of creating almost like a committee in each neighborhood, right, that can begin to think through this and can make sure that arts organizations and artists in that neighborhood are prepared to take advantage of those opportunities, and that the city is supporting in whatever way we can to get the word out about those opportunities and get the word out to folks as they're coming here for the games to make sure that they're going out and doing those things in each neighborhood. So I think this is something that I would love to explore more in collaboration. I don't have like a 5-point plan, but I think there's a huge amount of potential there, and I would love to partner on that.
Sure, I'll start off with lessons learned and then what we're going to do for FIFA games. So one of the lessons we learned is we were successful in, for example, getting the Major League Baseball organization to invest over $2 million in one of our in an area that needed most in 98118 Southeast Seattle, the Rainier Playfield, where actually she coached baseball down there. She coached kids down there. So we were able to get a capital investment, which is sustainable because of course, it stayed after the All-Star games were over. We also were very intentional about making sure that we had historically Black colleges participate in this as well through some connections that we had. And so we made it very cultural, if you will, culturally relevant for some people that felt like they might have been boxed out. But we did learn that not all of the money trickled to some of the media outlets and perhaps some of the local businesses that we wanted to see. So we received their feedback and said, let's learn from that and do better. So moving forward with FIFA, we have a very good local organizing committee, and internal to the city, we sort of have a combined effort between our Office of Economic Development, which is for small businesses, and I'll put artists into that sort of bucket for the moment. And we have our Office of Arts and Culture, all under working with Greg Wong, our deputy mayor. And so that sort of triangle, if you will, we want to make sure we have the best opportunity right now for artists to showcase their talent. We're going to be on the world stage. And so what we're trying to make sure is that every opportunity sort of presents itself. Now, we're very intentional about having the Seattle Center as the fan experience, if you will. So we're going to literally get hundreds of thousands of people walking through the Seattle Center. And you see, we are revamping Memorial Stadium. And for Memorial Stadium, we're very intentional about making sure it's more artist friendly. It's not just a football stadium. Now it becomes a place for music venues, plays, other types of expressive activities. So when FIFA game gets here, that's sort of my way of simply saying that pipe into OED and OAC and a local organizing committee. FIFA gives us this opportunity to establish Seattle's narrative on the world stage, and that's how we're looking at this. This is our time, if you will. We were successful in getting the FIFA activity here. That we had to bid for that. We had to work for that. So now let's take advantage of it. So we're setting up an ecosystem for all of the arts communities to pipe in. We'll have the fan activity at the Seattle Center. Seattle Center is going to be the new Seattle Center is with the most effective emphasis on arts and culture. And you see in programming what we started to do under my administration. We had like Blast Fest, Afro Beats, never been done before. Songs of Black Folk, Juneteenth, never been done before. We have the Belltown Mural Fest. We're trying to create truly an artsy vibe, if you will, because I keep telling people, oh, red flag, sorry. Oh, you're not waving it. I'm trying to let people know that this is how we define the city after we had some national press that was negative for Chop Chaz. We're saying, no, this is how Seattle gets down here in arts and culture. Flags waving.
Thank you. Let's transition into accountability. You both have mentioned some ways you already have supported arts and culture. What's one clear way we haven't heard of so far that you have supported arts and culture in your public service thus far? And what is one clear metric that you would like us to hold you accountable to by the end of your term? Mayor Harrell first.
Well, I would say, I have 41 departments in my Office of Arts and Culture right now. I am to be held accountable for they're not meeting you where you are. They're not being creative with legislation. The music loading zones is a great example. We met community. It was something, didn't take a lot of effort. We just had to think of the right ideas to do, and then we acted on it, realizing that these ideas come from artists and ventures themselves. So accessibility is absolute key. I know I have the right person in the right job. There in that particular department, they did have some morale issues that I had to address, and I think I have them working on all cylinders right now. The admissions tax is a great barometer. I mean, I monitor it. If it falls below our projections or above our projections, the foot traffic that we're trying to create downtown, again, is a great example of how we pipe money into the arts industry. So that's probably one of the biggest metrics, if you will, in terms of our success. I'd also let you know that I ask all of our departments to pipe into the arts space, whether it's Seattle Department of Transportation or Office of Economic Development. When I meet with them, they know my affinity toward arts. And so I ask them, how are you helping Golgoon's organization, and see her organization again as the connective tissue when we meet. So when I have retreats, we start off with music, we start off with song, we do things like that just to get us in the right vibe. And then Golgoon shows her leadership in pulling us together. So we try to model the behavior we want to be in Seattle. And I'd also sort of close by saying the success of the waterfront should be a measure by which we should be evaluated. It's taken a lot of work. I have to staff it pretty heavily, and we have a lot of strategic plans. And the question becomes, are we supporting the arts community in our efforts? And I think the huge investments we've been able to make on the waterfronts, both tax dollars and philanthropic dollars and corporate dollars, really helps define our city. And that's just, quite frankly, leadership from my administration reaching out, making sure we're trying to make all boats rise.
Okay, great question. So in terms of work that I have done over the years, my career of coalition building and winning policies that benefit working families across our region. To the extent that I've succeeded in making our region more affordable and making it possible for working people to live here, I hope that that has indirectly supported arts and culture workers and the whole sector. To give a few examples of that work, I helped to build and lead a coalition that won stronger renter protections policies in 8 different cities around the county, including Seattle. So that's things like if you get a large rent increase notice, your landlord has to give you 6 months notice instead of the 60 days required by state law. I've also helped to lead minimum wage campaigns in Tukwila, Burien, unincorporated King County, and supported minimum wage campaigns in several other cities. And so to the extent that we're helping people who are have a day job that they're using to fund their art, and they can make $4 an hour more because of that law, I think that can be helpful. And then, of course, my role in designing and passing the Jumpstart tax in 2020, a bulk of that funding was intended to go to affordable housing and the Equitable Development Initiative. And so to the extent that those programs funded by that tax have benefited arts and culture workers, again, I hope I've made a small contribution. So that's some of my work over the years. In terms of, I guess I'll say, accountability, I think keeping with the theme of affordability, maybe a good metric would be how affordable it is for artists to live in the city, right? And, realizing there are many factors out of my control and any of our control, I'm going to throw everything I've got at the affordability crisis if I'm successful in this race. So I'll also mention just a few things that I've heard from people that I think should be looked into. So I know we have our admissions tax. I'm aware that men's sports events do not contribute to that admissions tax. And that's kind of a gaping hole that if it were fixed, that would result in more revenue for the arts. I know that fix has to happen at the state level. So that is something that I am committed to lobbying hard for and seeing if we can get that changed. I know accessibility of art space can be an issue, especially I was just down at the Tasvir South Asian Film Festival, and they would love to put an elevator in the building so that their upstairs theater is accessible. It's very expensive, and I think similar issues in old buildings around Seattle that arts organizations have managed to obtain. So I think the city helping with that could be really good. I'll stop there. Yeah, I had a few more, but maybe I'll have a chance to share later.
Thank you. That's a good segue into access and affordability. So both of you have mentioned the city is getting pricier and artists are being priced out of Seattle. What will you do as mayor to keep artists and cultural workers here in the city? Ms. Wilson first.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I've said a bunch of things on this theme, so I'll try to figure out how to not just simply repeat those things. So in terms of how to make housing affordable more broadly in ways that will also hopefully help arts and culture workers, I'm obviously a big proponent of social housing. That's one of the big reasons I jumped into this race, is really wanting to fight to make our Seattle social housing developers successful. And as I mentioned, I think there's opportunities there for direct partnerships with the arts and culture sector, as well as just expanding permanently affordable housing in our city. So that's one thing. Also, definitely want to figure out how the city can continue and deepen our partnerships with organizations that are trying to make homeownership more affordable, and also creating family-sized units. I think artists deserve to have families too, and we should do everything possible to make that stability possible in Seattle. And I'll also say I believe that we should strengthen our economic displacement relocation assistance law, which currently for rent increases greater than 10% mandates landlord-paid relocation assistance. I think that threshold should be 5% so that we are disincentivizing the kind of large rent increases that often price people out of their homes. So tackling the housing affordability crisis in all those ways and more, I think can help to create stability for folks in the arts and culture sector, as well as, of course, partnering with and supporting efforts specifically to create affordable housing for artists in Seattle. Childcare costs is another big element of the affordability crisis that I want to tackle. As the mother of a 2-year-old and feeling this keenly myself. Really, yeah, figuring out how we can provide that support, making sure that childcare is more available and affordable. And obviously that's not something the city can totally do alone, right? We also have to be partnering and working at the state level because this is a state level problem. But if we can invest more at the city level for childcare, that is another kind of element of the affordability crisis that's definitely affecting people across the board.
Okay, should I start? Usually waiting for someone to say start. So, okay. So I think this is probably a sharp distinction or contrast between my opponent and I in terms of housing policy. And I've been working on housing policy for 30 years. That under our leadership, number one, we have created and opened over 8,000 affordable units. We've preserved and opened, and we will continue to do that kind of work. We've actually built globally over 50,000 units in the city. And what my opponent wants to do is take, for example, the housing levy, which is designed to build another 3,100 affordable units. It's designed to keep 9,000 people from being homeless, particularly people like artists, people that have, 70, 80, 90% of area median income. We want to use that money for housing. And my opponent's strategy would be to not do that and to take that money and to use it for those that are unsheltered. And we, with respect to the unsheltered population under our administration, again, in 2020, there were 2,078. Right now, they are 3,075. And so we have actually increased city-funded shelter. The challenge we have, of course, is we want to do a best practice, and we want permanent supportive housing because we want people to succeed. And in our leadership, 50% of the people that were in shelter succeeded to supportive housing and became stable. So we want artists to be able to live here. We want to build this Seattle for housing for our artists in our community. That is exactly what the voters passed when they passed the levy, and we used a lot of relationship capital to pass $970 million levy. Under our administration for housing, we have broken all numbers in terms of investing in this space. Over $1 billion in housing, and we will do that in my second term. We will build over $1 billion of housing. My current budget right now is $350 million. That is an unprecedented number, and I have to remind people that I've had a budget deficit every single year I've been in office, $642 million of deficits. But even with that challenge, we have found a way to put money into housing because my mom and dad did not go to college. My mom and dad would not be able to live in this city today. And that is the passion and the commitment from the current administration. And we want to build this Seattle for our artists because of the value that I talked about in our earlier programming.
Thank you both. We have a couple minutes left, and so I have a couple rapid fire questions. These first two you've already both brought up, but I want to make sure that we get an answer on the record here, yes or no. So we'll start with you, Mayor Harrell. Do you commit to protecting 100% of the admissions tax for arts funding?
Yes.
And Ms. Wilson?
I do, and it shouldn't be used for graffiti removal.
Say it again?
I do, and it should not be used for graffiti removal. Okay.
So that's a dig and another misstatement. I could clarify if you'd like. I mean, this whole campaign's been riddled with these kinds of statements. It's used for murals, and it's used for our artists to create murals, and we've had some beautiful uses of these great investments.
Would you revisit exploring admission tax exceptions such as at Lumen Field, Mayor Harrell?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Would you revisit exploring admission tax exceptions such as at Lumen Field?
I'm always open for a discussion, yes.
Okay.
It is a state issue, though. We understand that is a state issue.
We do.
Period.
Yes, and we need to fight hard for that at the state level. It's not going to happen by itself.
I'm going to pass it back to Jessie. Thank you so much for answering our questions.
Great. Thank you, Alea, and thank you, Bruce and Katie, for being here and giving your time for this important discussion. I'm now going to transition into our public Q&A with the 15 minutes or so that we have left. So these are questions that have been written in or have been sent to us from other advocates across the city, and then I'll turn it over to see if we have any other Q&As. We'll get to those next. I see that there's a few in there building up. Okay, so from a cultural advocate in District 7, the admission tax may not be a good way to fund the city's support of art since it is tied so closely to the changing nature of tourism. Can you imagine alternatives that make city funding of arts and culture more robust and reliable? Let's do 1 minute for these questions so we can try to get through as many of the public questions as we can. I'm trying to remember who went first last time. I think it was Bruce. So let's go Katie first for 1 minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, I've done a lot of work on progressive revenue and tax policy in my career. In 2023, I served on the Seattle Revenue Stabilization Work Group and did a ton of research into our revenue options, published a report. If I were in the mayor's office at that point, would have taken much more aggressive action to raise new progressive revenue at that point when we knew that we had a structural budget deficit opening up. And so I am absolutely going to be looking for new progressive revenue to deal with our shortfall and fund important things like the arts. In terms of specific taxes, I mean, one thing, I don't know exactly what this would look like, but with the explosion of AI and all of the ways in which AI is kind of parasitic on the product, on the arts and on the products of our arts workers, artists, it would be very interesting to figure out a way that if we could somehow tax AI and direct that funding into the arts.
Sorry, that was my bad. I forgot, was not paying attention. All right, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll answer the question directly. So, I convened the Progressive Revenue Task Force, and the tools that the task force had come back to me just can't be done under city law. So, the progressive real estate excise tax, the estate tax, the inherited tax, the income tax, all these things. So, the challenge we have here is what tools the state has given us. So, some of the ideas, and I have to tell you that one thing our administration has done is when we talk about Amazon, had 60 billion in profit and Microsoft had 80 billion in profit. My pitch to them, if you will, is that they are trying to attract talent, employees here. We are still the fourth fastest growing city in the country. We were able to achieve $40 million in philanthropic gifts to do some of the work on our parks north of Seattle. So what I'm trying to establish is, can we have some kind of revolving fund for many of the small venues? The challenge with a lot of small venues is they don't have the capital to tie up for 4, 5, 6 months to get artists here. So how can we make sure that we have a revolving fund, use some of our community-based organizations? And also I'd say that the B&O tax that I proposed is very aggressive, taxing the top taxpayers, but it gives the artist organizations a improved tax break, basically.
Thank you. All right, from a cultural worker in District 3. There has been talk within the city about a capital levy for the Seattle Center to address years of deferred maintenance. Many facilities are in very bad shape. What are your views on updating the city's cultural campus, strengthening its civic role, and how does that balance with supporting science, heritage, and arts programs beyond downtown and with every city neighborhood? We'll do Bruce first.
So the person asked the question is spot on, that we will strongly consider going to the ballot to improve the Seattle Center. One of the reasons why, again, we raised money for the Memorial Stadium, millions and millions of dollars, to create it basically into an arts and culture venue that has a football field in it, the way we open it up. If you look at what we're doing at the Pacific Science Center, reshaping all of that to make sure that is integrated into the Seattle Center. One reason why we wanted to have the FIFA fan experience there is to take a lot of the capital that will come with this activity and create sort of an arts space. So the answer is absolutely. This is what we're trying to do. The Seattle Center was put us on the map in 1962. So during my second administration, after the FIFA games, we will be back on the map with everything we're doing in an integrated way. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game with other organizations. We feel pretty good about all boats rising in what we're doing. So Seattle Center, we've put a lot of time into the new strategic plan.
Thank you. And Katie.
Yeah, so I've done kind of a first pass on reviewing and understanding the levy proposal. And I mean, I certainly agree that we need to update and invest in the Seattle Center. It's obviously a very, very important hub for the arts, as well as just tourism, and also Seattle residents coming for all kinds of reasons and sports. So I think that I think it's a good idea, but I do share the concern about especially having just completed the waterfront park, a lot of focus, a lot of resource intensive, capital intensive focus being put on destinations which are, very tourist heavy, very, very close to downtown. And so if there's a way that we can wrap in funding for investments in other neighborhoods, I would love to explore that and make sure that we are spreading the wealth and spreading the investment around the city.
Great. Okay, I'm going to bounce over to our public Q&A now. All right, here's a question. How can these giant companies contribute financially to the arts and culture scene? All of these young graduates decide to come here instead of other tech cities because of arts and culture and nightlife scene. They get so much from what we do and contribute next to nothing to the people and orgs that make it happen. All right, we'll start with Katie.
Yeah, so I mean, we have our Jumpstart payroll expense tax, which is our kind of landmark progressive revenue source that is funded largely by large tech corporations. So we already have a mechanism for deriving revenue from those companies. I do think that it's possible that we can turn up the dials on Jumpstart to raise additional revenue. I also think we have to be a little bit cautious about it in a moment where I think tech workers are feeling very insecure about their jobs. And, if we're creating too much of a very different tax system here versus on the east side, then that is a problem. I definitely support fighting for a statewide version of Jumpstart to kind of level the playing field. And you could imagine having a credit against the Seattle companies that pay the tax. But yeah, very, very interested if we can figure out how to have them contribute more. And maybe there are ways to encourage them to step up and do that, voluntarily. Obviously, they'll do that if there's some good publicity in there for them. But would love to help make this happen.
Great. And Mayor Harrell?
So to answer the question directly, that's exactly why in our downtown activation plan, we put arts in the center of it. What I call experiential activities. And that's how you rejuvenate a downtown. What I try to appeal to sometimes when I'm pitching anybody, whether it's a person or a large, powerful corporation, is their self-interest. They're trying to recruit talent here. Talent likes to be entertained and likes activity. So to the extent downtown becomes that go-to place, their employees will like that, and that's a value add for them. And that is how we're able to get money for the Memorial Stadium. That's how we're able to get money for the parks, over $40 million for parks. That's how we're actually able to get money for homelessness strategies from these large corporations. Don't forget, both Amazon and Microsoft put over $1 billion into philanthropic efforts for affordable housing. So as mayor, I make sure that they pay their fair share in taxes. That's why we proposed the B&O tax that we did. But we also make sure we're creating the downtown that's conducive toward their employees. And I'll continue to hammer them on that work.
Great. What are your plans for the upcoming generations of young artists, especially in regard to the recent Seattle Creative Economy Career Day? I'll start with Mayor Harrell.
Yeah, I think this is our greatest opportunity here. The industry has changed, and we know we are a technology city to a large extent, on top of being a maritime and a port city. And with the introduction of our AI house, the creative economy here, that we are merging the ability to lower the barriers of entry for artists. We're trying to create them the physical environment with which they can show their talent. And again, under our Office of Economic Development, you see that we are on the cutting edge of leading the creative economy. We have more spaces. Our Seattle Restored program is designed for artists. We're on the cutting edge. And so again, that confluence between technology and music now that people are being so gifted at doing, we should lead the way, and we're trying to create the space for that. And that's why our investment in the AI house is so cool, because I think we're attracting talent that intersects between music and technology.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, the creative economy is such a big part of Seattle's economy. I know even more so than nationally. Nearly 18% of our economy is related to creative industries, and so we want that to continue, and we want there to be strong career pathways in the arts and culture. One thing that I have heard is that there is some siloing at City Hall, so that there maybe could be some more fruitful collaboration between arts and culture, OED, OPCD, Department of Neighborhoods, other departments, which are kind of potentially touch both arts and culture and economic development. And so I really think we can do some deep thinking about how to expand our creative economy and make sure that in partnership with the schools, right, and with our colleges, trying to create those pathways through education and training, and create opportunities for young artists to actually make a living at what they love to do. Oh, and I guess one thing I'll say on AI, I mean, I think there's potential there, but also I do think we need to look at AI policy and regulation, and the fact that AI is so parasitic on the arts and culture industry. We need to make sure that that's taken care of.
Thank you. All right, we have one more question here in the public Q&A. What will ensure that we won't get kicked out like Seattle Restored, then they come back and take back the space? I think that's referring to artists and things like that. So Katie, you'll go first.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking with a lot of small business owners at this point around the city, and have held a number of small business roundtables, and have heard from a number of people who've participated in the Seattle Restore program. I think it's a really well-intentioned program, and for a few people it's worked really well, but I have definitely heard that there are some major design flaws and maybe too much of an emphasis on kind of churning people through the program and being able to say this many businesses came through this program. But if your 3 months of subsidy in that space is not long enough, and you're not able to actually take flight as an entrepreneur in a small business, then kind of what are we doing, right? So I definitely am in favor of improving that. And in general, as we're creating programs to support small businesses and artists, making sure that we're really doing that in consultation and understanding what's going to be necessary to make that successful and sustainable, so that we're actually having the beneficial impact that we're intending to have.
Great. And Mary Harrell?
So I'd probably address that a little differently, just by saying that the Seattle Restored program are to give people an opportunity and a chance. And when we look at sustainability, we then have the Liberty Project. And the Liberty Project is where we take Tabor 100, like a Chamber of Commerce, the Seattle University and University of Washington, and we bring them in together to look at strategic planning, look at access to capital, look at human resource training, look at use of social media and use of technology. So what we try to do is give them a start and then carry them to the next level of their productivity. And so that's, you look at some of the venues that we've assisted, like Cannonball as an example, some of the work we've done with Bumper Shoots. So we're trying to activate, give people an opportunity, and then give them the resources to carry on. We realize that Seattle Restored program is it was a very creative idea that we did, and we want to make sure that we give everyone an opportunity to succeed. So we're not in the business of kicking people out. We're in the business of helping people.
Great. Okay, it looks like we have one last question, and then we'll wrap it up after this one. It seems that the Office of Arts and Culture is perpetually underfunded and understaffed. How would you address your plans to expand arts programming in the city with the knowledge that the admission tax is declining? And we'll start with Mayor Harrell.
So number one, under my administration, we actually increased the staff. So that is the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is I have had $642 million of a budget deficit since I've been in office. These are tough times. What I've tried to demonstrate is we don't take for granted any of what we're doing in the arts culture. One of the reasons why, I keep a very close eye on the admission taxes. We're very methodical in how we use that. So our goal is to keep it up. And again, when you look at programs that the county has passed, the Doors Open program as example. We were promoting and making sure that that took place in a very positive way as well. So we're fighting for more events, more activation. We'll get creative. We want that tax to go up. And again, our arts and culture department is one of our gems. And so we plan on, again, increasing it and keeping it on the right trajectory. But we've increased the staff in that department, even to sort of budget challenges.
And Katie.
Yeah, so I mean, part of the answer to this question is, again, to fight at the state level to expand the admissions tax to the men's sports stadiums, so that we can get more revenue flowing in. I think we can also look at, making sure that we are coordinating with the county and for culture, and if there are ways that we can shift the way that Seattle's using our smaller amount of arts resources, so that we're using that in the most effective possible way to create the greatest benefit for folks in the sector. I think we can definitely look at that. And I'm, very open to other sources of revenue too, again, acknowledging that we do have a major budget deficit and there are a lot of things competing for revenue.
Great. Thank you to both of you for your time in this very busy campaign season. We're so grateful that you took this opportunity to talk to our cultural leaders. I see Manny has come back if he wants to say anything else, but then we'll, for our friends out in the virtual space, this is being recorded. We will share it out broadly to all of our cultural sector.
Thank you, Bruce and Katie. Gosh, this was a really great conversation. I thought we got to some depth that was really helpful to our advocates and everyone that cares about science, heritage, and the arts. And to all of our advocates out there, this is your opportunity to learn about the candidates. You can visit their websites. Always vote with culture in mind. And again, I want to enforce that this is not an endorsement. We are really always happy to provide more information for people to make good choices. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.